Michelle Obama, we love her. I love her.
Yeah.
I love Michelle. Anyway, she's weighing in on her daughter Malia's decision to drop the family last name as she starts a new career in filmmaking. Take a look.
You're trying to distinguish yourself. I mean, it is very important for my kids to feel like they've earned what they are getting in the world. And they don't want people to assume that they don't work hard, that they're just naturally just handed things. They're very sensitive to that. Malia, who started in film, I mean, her first project, she took off her last name.
So she's not using Obama.
Yeah.
But this was a decision that Patrick Schwarzenegger wrestled with when he started acting, and he talked about it with his father, Arnold, in a Variety interview. Watch this clip.
There were times earlier in my career where I was wondering, does it make sense to go under some sort of alias? Does it make sense to go under a different name? Do I just use Schwarzenegger? Does that add to comparison? It took a while for me to get to a point where I was less worried about comparison and living in your shadow versus me just wanting to carve my own path.
Well, I'm glad that you kept the name.
Yes.
Because now I can take credit. Yeah, my son, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
At least he doesn't have the accent.
Wait a minute. He's also Maria Shriver's son,
Yes,
and there's a lot of her.
Yeah. So do you think they should try to avoid being branded a Nepo baby or own it the way he is?
I don't think there's
Not that Malia is avoiding the
Right.
Nepo thing. She just doesn't want that on her.
I don't think there's a clear right answer to how to handle it, but I can actually, you watched these people that grow up, especially the Obama girls, they were so young how young were they when they were in the White House? It was like 9 or 8. So when you've grown up under that, I respect and deeply admire that they're saying, hey, I recognize I have this amazing name that I'm so proud of, but I really want to make my own way and carve my own path. And I think that is so cool. And that doesn't mean keep it or let it go. It's whatever works for them.
I think this idea that they're carving their own path when they have parents like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver, it's a different path than somebody who doesn't have those parents goes through.
Yeah, of
okay,
course.
and I think that you can't avoid the fact that you get opportunities. You get experiences, you get exposure, you get connections that you wouldn't if you weren't the child of somebody famous.
Remember what George Bush said, what Ann Richards said about George Bush? He was born on second base and he thinks he hit a triple.
No, it was he was
like
born.
that.
He was
Born on third base.
He was born with a silver foot.
No,
in
it
his
was a
mouth.
baseball illusion.
Well, he said he was born with a silver foot in his mouth. That's
a different quote.
But the point is, you're going to get all of those advantages. But if you go through the doors are going to be open for you more easily than they are for somebody that doesn't have connections. But if you go through the door and you don't show substance, you don't show that you can do it, you don't show work ethic, that door's going to shut on you pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And what I don't like about it is that people assume that you didn't earn it. People assume you don't have the talent. I remember Patrick Schwarzenegger, who's starring in White Lotus. He's fantastic in that, and he's been, taking acting lessons for 10 years. And so he earned that position.
Yeah, but it's a foot in the door in the first place.
A foot in the door,
but
but the door will close if you're not talented. I remember Denzel Washington's son, John David. He is excellent. Jamie Lee Curtis had the name, she had the connections, but she's also excellent. So there are a lot of, Drew Barrymore, there are a lot of people that are truly good at the craft, and that is somehow taken away from it. I mean, it's anecdotal, but I'm just a measly talk show host, and when my son got into college, everyone was like, she must have bought a building. I ain't got building money, okay? I don't have building money, but he had a 4.0 GPA. He had a near perfect score on the SATs, and people were trying to take that accomplishment away from him. I don't like that. I think, I just didn't like it.
I love Mama Bear Sunny.
Yeah.
I think
it ticked me off.
I see it as two things. As long as you acknowledge the advantage that you had, because whether it's having money and resources, not having to take on a second job to, make ends meet, being able to get those acting classes, exposure, if it's politics, whatever it may be. But then it's the hard work. And at the end of the day, if you are good enough, the good news is a generation will never know you're a Nepo baby. I looked up a bunch that I didn't know. I always forget George Clooney is technically one.
Yes.
Jamie Lee Curtis, Gwyneth Paltrow, Mariska Hargitay, I always say that wrong, Jake Gyllenhaal. Like, those are people that I never actually really knew they were somebody else's kid because they're so excellent at their own craft.
That's
so
right.
earn your keep. The part where I think in day-to-day life people have issue with it is if they have a colleague or someone they have to work with who had all the advantages and doesn't recognize that they got a leap ahead of other people and that they didn't have to necessarily work as hard. Show up, work just as hard, and be excellent, and people will forget about it.
Well, and that's the kind of double side when, Anna, you alluded to it, like you're going to get in doors that other people don't, but whether you stay or not is based on you. And so, Sunny, when you say people assume, we live in a massive society of haves and have-nots. So I almost think if I carried a big name, I would say, I assume you don't think I earned my way. I'll prove you otherwise.
Yeah.
I think that's the attitude to come in. It's the blessing and the curse of carrying a big name.
You know what? Boo-hoo.
Well, what do you think?
Because you know how hard it is to get an agent? You know how many nights in front of how many drunks I had to make laugh?
Yeah.
Please, with these people.